Hi, everybody. Welcome to Fridays with Sue and Steph on this blistery, snowy, icy day in Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah.
And, if you're somewhere warm, we're really happy for you. kind of.
We're really happy for you.
Anyway, we had an interesting conversation yesterday with the expert who's going to appear on our next podcast, which will be a week and a half from now. Dr. Michael Rich, and he is a pediatrician and adolescent doc who focuses on media. And we just had a conversation, very short, like kind of in passing, about boredom. And then it was like, that's a really big topic. We don't really talk about it that much. So Steph and I thought, well, we'll talk about it, Anyway, so I think the one thing that we all know and we all can see is that, hold on, let me just get rid of this person who's spamming us. Okay. Anyway, so one of the things that what'd you say?
You must be bored.
Oh, that's funny. Adanma is bored and came to our website. Really unfortunate to get spammers. Okay, so the thing about phones today is that in some ways it feels like this big gift, right? Like and I would put boredom with discomfort also, but like you're somewhere where you can't find your people, you don't know what to do with yourself. What does everyone do? They take out their phone.
Yeah.
But what happened when you didn't have your phone? So, if you're bored, you take out your phone or you go on your devices and do something like that. What does it mean when you're like retreating like internally with yourself as opposed to kind of having to solve that problem? So I was trying to think, like, I hated when my kids told me they were bored. Like I thought all the stuff here to do and you're bored, like do something. But I don't think it was because I felt like they should never be bored. Although I can't remember. I might have felt that way. You should never say that. But there's this other side to it, which is go figure something out, right?
Totally.
Like, I mean, you can sit by yourself and twiddle your thumbs. Just don't bring me into that. Like, figure something out. There is a way to unboard yourself. So I don't know what did you come up with, Steph?
Yeah. So I wrote down a few things, and one I was thinking about, like, I loved when the kids said they were bored because it's the same thing. I would be like, well, I loved it and I hated it because I'd have that visceral reaction, right? Where I'd be like, oh my God, how could you be bored? And where we were like, okay, you've already, or we're going to watch a movie later, like screens are done, you know what I mean? Being cognizant of that, which was some of the conversation, obviously, with Michael Rich. And I jotted down this really funny thing we just came across in a video where you do find that creativity. So we were watching this video. The boys were probably 7 and 5. And in the video, Todd has come home from work and they escort him up to, they shared a room. They escort him up to their room. And around the room are Todd's clothes and belongings. And they have labeled, they've created a shop and they're selling. So, and at one point in the video, Todd is like taking out money and he turns to the camera and he goes, great, I'm paying to buy my own clothes back.
I know, but look at how entrepreneurial that was. They were so clever. They sold stuff to the person who owns the stuff. That's brilliant. Genius. So I would
say, must have taken them hours to set it up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hi, Jerry. Always good to see you.
Jerry.
I feel like it's the equivalent of the refrigerator box that comes in your house.
Oh my God.
And like when your kids were little, you could hand them the box and they could spend hours with that box. And so as teenagers, what did that equivalent look like? And in my house, I did see a creativity come out of boredom that maybe lost a little bit right now. Like I have one kid who over the summer had a job, but didn't have a lot going on and decided to build a desk. That was like a big deal. It didn't involve me at all, but it involved a lot of learning and a lot of math and science. And that desk ended up in a guest room because it couldn't be moved anywhere else. So I didn't really need a desk in that room, but that's where it is. But anyway, if you think about yourself, like what does boredom lead you to?
Yes. Okay. So it's funny. I was thinking about the activities that specifically And it's not even boredom. It's like it's putting your head in another space. So like I always think of like hiking, swimming, where I don't have my phone. And it's funny, people have said to me like, "Oh, do you take like music out with you when you're hiking?" No, I don't take music because I want to hear the natural sounds, right? And everyone's different, right? Like, and I'm not somebody who loves and craves music. Like I love like just the sound of silence and the sound of, just nature. And same with swimming when I can like my mind is just like it, it's like that rhythm of this of swimming, right? And so I've just kind of let my mind go. And it is truly when things like ideas come in, because I've like it's almost like I've taken my like my heartbeat to a certain level, right? Like I don't know. It's a really strange
It's a little meditative. Like
it's very meditative.
right.
That's
It
exactly
frees
right. Mm-hmm.
it frees space for like things that you're kind of like struggling with. Like at the end of
Mm-hmm.
a power walk, I've solved all the problems that were
Yep.
perseverating in my brain. In
Yep.
terms of like the boredom, like I've just seen my kids come up with during COVID, for example, like really creative ideas, PowerPoint presentations if they wanted something. And like those could take hours. Like they'd walk away
Yeah.
frustrated with a no, be like stomping around the house, and then all of a sudden be like, I got this. Like I know how I know how to market my problem to my parents so that I could get what I want. Let's see what Brianna says. Brianna says, I could never. Yeah, Brianna, we're kind of feeling the same way as we're like locked in with snow. I just go out and enjoy our beautiful
Yeah.
weather year
Mm,
round.
jealous.
Okay.
I have another thought on boredom is,
Want to let me share Christina's
oh
for one
yeah, go
second?
ahead. Mhm.
Okay, let's just share. Oh,
Mm,
yeah, such good ideas. Read a book, play a board game, play cards, bake a treat, start a craft. Usually I have to initiate it, but if asked, the kids will do it. I simply say, I'd love to do something with you, and then list the activities. That's great. Are they
yeah.
complaining first about being bored, Christina? Or is it like just keep, you're like Julie, the cruise director? Because I played that role too
Yeah.
well. I
Yeah.
didn't let my kids have a lot of downtime when they were younger.
So while we're waiting for her response, I
Okay.
remember when we lived in our house in Philly. So I was definitely under 10 years old. How old I was, I don't know, but we moved from that house at 10. So I know I was under 10. And we had this space under the steps that was like a storage closet, but I turned it into my office. Now it's so funny. My husband did the same thing when he was a kid. Now, so is that a coincidence or did every kid do that? I have no idea. And I used to have this little pulley system, and we would sit, me and my cousin or a friend, and we would sit on either side and we would drape something in between us. So as if we were like in two different offices. And then we would use the pulley system and paper clips to send the the notes back and forth. I hadn't thought about it till today. And I loved that space. Like I loved being in there. And it was like we could spend hours in there. And I find myself even with my device is like I'm good about leaving it and I can definitely disconnect. But I find in the evening, like I'm doing less reading. And is that because like on screens all day and like my eyes are tired? So it's not even like I'm choosing a screen, but I think from all the screens, I'm choosing less of other things, which bums me out. And I know I have control over it, except
Well, I mean,
except I'm exhausted.
yeah. So COVID is such a weird time, and
Mhm.
and everything seems so like topsy turvy.
Yeah,
For our teenagers, how do we encourage them? Boredom is uncomfortable.
yeah,
Like no one wants to say like, "Can I have an hour of boredom?" Right? Like it's not on your wish list.
yeah.
How do we encourage our kids, or not? I guess we'd have to encourage them because it's just so easy to have the device in your hand.
Mhm.
Somehow to say, like, take a break from your device just to kind of think of something else to do. I,
Yes.
I don't know if I don't know if it's lost. Like, can we retrieve boredom?
Okay, here's what I'll say. I'm not sure it's lost. I think that it's sometimes it's even, and Michael touched on this when we talked to him yesterday. It's it's how we use the devices. So like I remember having this very like strong feeling like if the kid was using the device, like I remember like one of ours who like loves to compose things, like I would see him walk with his phone over to the piano. And I'm like, I wonder what he's doing, And then he'd be like watching something, and I'm like, oh, he was watching somebody like some song he was trying to learn or whatever. And I'm like, to me, I have much less of a reaction to that because I feel like he's using it for something creative. And I don't know if that's a justification, but I remember thinking, like, well, that doesn't bother me. But
Well, I
then
think it is
staring,
different.
doing nothing, right? Not integrating it with something else is where I would be like, oh my God, it's enough.
I think it's for me. I hear it a little bit more as the solution.
Mm-hmm.
So if your creative endeavor involves a phone, I don't care. Like
Right.
of
Right.
course, you need to look up the dimensions of a desk. I don't
Mm-hmm.
care. But it's when you have the feeling of being bored, like you're sitting there, kids, grown-ups, whoever, and you're like, I'm a little bored right now. What should I do? And the solution is this. Like
Mm-hmm.
when that is what's happening, we aren't letting ourselves dream and think
Yes.
big and stare out the window and do all those things that, are just kind of like creative juices.
Yeah. It reminds me of one of my kids had a teacher who used to say, get comfortable being uncomfortable. And, it is uncomfortable to sit and everyone's, in a doctor's office and wherever, right? That you're just sitting. But like, I think it skates up next to that because it's like, yeah, I'm uncomfortable, but if you can get to the other side or sit in that discomfort, you can probably find something. But we have been this and parents too. I think us and the kids have, now gotten accustomed to like, oh, I don't like that feeling of being uncomfortable. I could solve that.
Yeah, so that's why I wonder how do you, I mean, because the truth is, well, Brianna says that they spend a lot of time outside. I think
I love that.
outside is so the antidote to this
Totally.
problem. But
Totally.
the boredom, like I so remember being bored as a kid. I totally remember my kids being bored, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it's solved too easily, that boredom with technology. Like it's so easy, and probably our parents rued the TV for that. Like, oh, and every
Totally.
time they were a little bored, they turn on the TV. So maybe it's
Yeah.
just like over time you have a new norm and you get bored. I mean, I get bored on the phone sometimes. Like I'm in there too long and I'm like, "Oh my God, just get out and
Mhm.
do something else," right? Like
Yeah.
I have to delete TikTok. I keep saying it and I haven't done it. But
Yeah. I had that early. I think I was telling you this. I had that early in the pandemic. And then I realized I was like, oh my God, I'm sucked down like the TikTok vortex. I am out, but it was such a good time to way to pass time, especially when we were literally like locked in our houses.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Okay, so let's think of, and we want you guys to join in. Think of the most creative thing your kids have
mm,
done when they were bored.
yeah.
You have
I think
one?
I shared mine when they sold the clothes back to their
Oh, yeah,
father.
that was
No,
creative.
but
Okay.
I'm trying to think that they were little. I'm trying to think of like teens.
I also I said about the PowerPoints, and what I loved the most about them is they had to really want something that they got
Yeah.
denied, and then come up with it involved marketing. It involved like being able to be strategic about finding that line. Like I remember when my kids wanted a dog, they put together this PowerPoint, and it was the benefits to Sue and Dan. I mean, it was so
Oh, that's
clever.
so funny.
And even
That's so
one did
funny.
it with the cell phone. You'll always know where I am. You'll be able to reach me at all times. Like
Mhm.
being able to look at it from the other side and say what would matter to my parents. Jerry gets bored of being retired.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. I was gonna say this could either be the deepest thing I've ever said or the stupidest, but I'm gonna put it out there. Is
Go for
that
it. Go for it.
I think when you're bored is when you really find yourself. Because it's the things that make you like you really have to like you have to dig deep into yourself and be like, okay, well, what do I want to do? Right. It's like having like that, we talk a lot about like having agency, right? And it's like boredom is such a great thing for that means like, so you've done your homework and you've done right, like you've done all the things you have to do, or your sports practice or your violin practice. But now you've got to be like, okay, what do I want to do with this time?
Okay, guys, share with us. Brianna says,
Oh,
I
that's a
love
good
this.
one.
My kids do lemonade stands when the weather's nice and hot chocolate
Yeah.
stands when it's cold. I think I either a friend told me or I read this somewhere that kids who do lemonade stands become entrepreneurs, which I think
Oh,
is
that's
fantastic.
funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really great.
That's a good one.
Oh, and Christina says when her kids are really bored, they work out at home.
Okay.
Fantastic.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So if anybody else has suggestions, we'd love to hear them. I'm trying to dig deep about what else my kids, because I'm certain that there was creativity going on, but the ones that stand out. You
Yeah.
got one? You
I
got one?
just remembered one.
Okay, go for it.
Actually, Jerry, who's on our call, his granddaughter and my son made a board game. They like created a board game, which is still in somebody's closet somewhere, which took hours, like hours to do that.
It's amazing.
So fun. So fun. I'm trying to think like what have I done? This is a big existential question. What have I done in the pandemic, right? Like what have I done?
Specifically during the pandemic or when you were a kid?
No, oh yeah, yes and yes. Like either with the kids.
I feel like the gift when I was a kid was a neighborhood. Like we just walked outside. It's like today there's no casual gathering. You have to plan for it.
Yeah.
And that was such a gift. Like you took your toboggan if it was snowing and you just went outside and met up with whoever else was doing it. It was very like low barrier to being around other people and doing something fun.
Yeah. So, and I have had teens throw on all their snow gear, grab the toboggans or whatever those little slides are we have in the garage and walk over to the nearby park and do that. It took way longer to get the stuff on and off, than they spent there, but who cared, right?
Yeah, Brianna agrees with you, Steph. Boredom fosters inner peace and self-love. Yeah. So here today, you heard it. We're starting a movement for boredom, but it's not really. See, the funny thing is we're not saying be bored. We're saying solve boredom differently. Like instead of solving boredom with a passive, use of your technology, be affirmative. Like be creative and affirmative in something that you want to make or do or cook or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Write a book.
Start a magazine.
Yeah. So many things. Okay. I got nothing else. You got anything else?
No. People are probably bored with our conversation.
Okay. But Brianna and Christina, thanks so much for participating. And Jerry, always nice to see you. If anybody has anything to add afterwards, put it in the chat and we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.